I guess I kind of forgot to mention at the top of the show, but I kind of wanted to do something kind of briefly, sort of in line with the month of February, because Valentine's Day's coming up. I thought I would take the opportunity to, because we had actually, Sid and Maxy kind of mentioned their thoughts on the last episode about their thoughts on a certain short-lived Shonen Jump series known as Love Rush by Ryohei Yamamoto. And I guess I might as well just get into it. Like, reading the first chapter of that, when it first, I guess, premiered in Visit Shonen Jump, I was not a fan. It probably didn't help that, because for those who don't know, this is basically kind of a monster girls kind of rom-com kind of thing, generally speaking. It didn't help that I was kind of burnt out on Nisekoi at that time, so I probably wasn't really ready for another rom-com. Not that I'm really, like, a huge fan of rom-coms in the first place, honestly. My Love Story and Nisekoi for a while being kind of the exceptions. My Love Story even more so, because My Love Story is just so good. Essentially, like, just in case people don't know what Love Rush is, just a quick synopsis. It's basically about a guy who is diagnosed with something known as the uber male gene, which basically means that he just looks more attractive to other girls than he actually is, and all the girls just fall in love with him, and it just causes him all sorts of problems. His genes are so powerful that all these different girls from other, like, supernatural planes of existence and other monster girls and even cupids fall in love with him, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens. Hijinks ensue, essentially. And I guess just to kind of get my thoughts out of the way, because Maxy and Sid probably have more to say about this than I do, but generally speaking, as far as a cancel Jump comic goes, I thought it was just kind of okay. Like, after I read it, I didn't really think about it too much afterwards. Like, there were some aspects about it I thought were kind of interesting, but, like, unfortunately, because it was so short-lived, it was never going to have the time to really, like, develop those aspects at all, or really make more out of them, I guess. So, I mean, I don't know. Generally, I just thought it was kind of okay. The ending I thought was actually kind of sweet, but other than that, it didn't really leave much of a mark on me. I don't know. I guess Sid or Maxy, what do you guys think about this series in particular?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of have a discussion on Love Rush just in general, because I was, after listening to the Hi-Fi Cluster episode you and Maxy did, like, I thought it would be really cool to just, do more episodes kind of spotlighting some of these, like, short-lived but very interesting cancel Jump series. And Love Rush, to me, was like a series that had just so much potential that I was just so absolutely crushed to see left go to waste because it got canceled. And, I really enjoy Love Rush. Like, revisiting those, at the time, when I was first reading it, I liked it, but there was, like, going back to it, like, I like it even more because it's really, really well written series, I think. What it's doing is just so much more interesting than your just general harem and like shonen romance comic, because it gets rid of all the biggest cliche right out of the gate. It's not about the fact that this kid, what's his name? Reiji. It's not about Reiji not being able to confess his love to his childhood friend Shizuka. There's no, like, misunderstandings. They clear all that up in the second chapter. And it's just kind of focused on him trying to work out a relationship with her while having to deal with the advances of all these other girls. But the thing about these other girls is like their attitudes and like their reasons for wanting to love Reiji, even though it's influenced by the fact that he has this uber male gene, like, they aren't shallow. They also have their own very interesting, like, kind of feelings about the idea of love and what it means to be in a relationship. I think the biggest, like, great example of this is the storyline with Taiga, the dog girl, who, like, Reiji is supposed to, like, get into a relationship with, and, like, she she just thinks about love as like just a physical kind of physical kind of thing, and not doesn't have any place any emotional weight in it. It's like really interesting. That to me encapsulate like what the series is going for in a really interesting way, because what the angle that Ryohei, what's the mangaka's name, Ryo Tamamura, right?
Yamamoto, I think.
Yamamoto. So it seemed to me what Yamamoto was trying to go for, like, it's, instead of just the series being about hijinks, it was really exploring kind of different ways to approach the idea of love and different opinions about what relationships are, and like working out feelings and kind of insecurities about being in relationship. And like the main like development and focus to me that like was particularly interesting was on the childhood friend Shizuka, who, at the beginning didn't see like Reiji in a romantic way, but after he confesses to him, like she has to really think about it, and she doesn't really know how to express her feelings or how she really feels. And so the run of the manga like really sees her just trying to figure out like how she feels about Reiji, and then how like whether she wants to be in a relationship with him and what that really even means. And to me, that was just so interesting. There were just a lot of really interesting things that the manga was doing in terms of looking at relationships and kind of exploring them on a deeper level than what most other rom-coms I feel really do, which are focused more on getting the hookup happening rather than going to like the opinions and like working through like how insecure people might feel and like how well-formed or ill-formed their ideas on love are. And I think if the manga had gone forward, it could have continued to explore those concepts in really interesting ways, which is why I'm very disappointed that it ended. Because, I mean, for me personally, like, I didn't used to be a fan of romantic comedies, and to a certain extent, I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not going to go out and watch a bunch of rom-com movies, but in the realm of manga, I do really appreciate well-done romance stories and well-done stories that look at relationships and people's ideas on love in an interesting way. That's a huge reason why I love Skip Beat so much, because the main character in Skip Beat does not want to fall in love and hates the idea of like letting herself fall in love. But so the series like sees her like trying to wrestle with those feelings as it goes on, as well as the feelings of, her love interest Ren. And so that's a huge reason why I love Skip Beat so much. And Real Love Rush is very much in the same way in terms of like how it's exploring the psychologies of the characters in a relationship rather than their efforts to get hooked up. And I really appreciated that.
I do kind of want to backtrack a little bit and say that, when I made that comment about, hijinks ensuing, that's just,
there's a lot of comedy. Like, also reading the series, like, it does have a lot of really great comedy. Like, there's just this great sequence of slapstick in the second chapter where Shizuka is just, like, warding off all of Reiji's pursuers and, like, and she like throws garlic into the mouth of this vampire girl, and then
that was actually pretty funny.
That's a great panel too, and then she like flips over this Oni girl, and like it's really great comedy moments. Like the art is really lends itself really well to comedy, and it reminds me a lot of Komi Nayoshi's style of comedy too in Nisekoi, but
yeah, I can see that.
It feels a lot brisker here and a little more fresh.
I wanted to backtrack on what I said earlier, just because like that is a fair point. Like a lot of the reason why I don't like rom-coms, especially in anime and manga, is because there's so many tropes in that genre that I am so tired of seeing. Like I hate it when rom-coms do things like, I don't know, say, just off the top of my head, maybe the main character accidentally is somehow in the girl's locker room for some dumb reason, for some extenuating circumstance, obviously not of his own will, of his own free will, and maybe he gets caught in the locker room, and all the girls just assume, he's a giant pervert and he should die, and I'm just not going to listen to his side of the story about why he's here. I'm just going to assume the worst in everybody. And I don't like and this is just kind of my problem with a lot of romances in general, too, now that I think about it, is that a lot of the misunderstandings that come about with, like, you know, stuff like love triangles and stuff, always gets on my nerves, because it's always stuff that you could like easily fix if you just sit down and talk about it. If real people would sit down and talk this stuff out and like actually come to some kind of reasonable conclusion, whereas I feel like that doesn't really happen a lot in a lot of romance comedies in general. But I will give Love Rush this, whether it's because it maybe didn't have the time to, or whether Yamamoto didn't want to focus on such tropes. You know, there really wasn't a lot of that in Love Rush, and I do have to commend it for that. So that made it a lot easier for me to read, because we thankfully didn't have to go through really any of that kind of thing. So I am happy for that. That is a big plus in my book. So that's why I just kind of wanted to retract what I said about hijinks ensuing. That's mostly me being facetious, but that is generally something I really do like about Love Rush. And I also do want to say I agree with all of your points. I do think those are all very good things about the comic. But it's also one of those things where it's like, it only ran for 13 chapters, so it was kind of hard for me to get like too emotionally invested in what's going on when the series is so short.
That's fair, but again, it was the potential and like what it was doing, like what I noticed it was doing that was really intriguing me and like really got me caught up. And I do like genuinely, like I did really genuinely like get really invested in Shizuka's character arc. I remember I put her.
She was probably the best character.
Yeah, I put her as my character of the week like twice last year, which there was only a select number of characters I put twice, and considering how short-lived Love Rush is, that does say quite a lot about like how much I really enjoyed that character arc. But you know, we haven't let Maxy get a word in edgewise. I want his opinions here.
Yeah, I am interested in what Maxy thinks. So go ahead, Maxy.
I'm having a good time listening. Well, I mean, I come in as like someone who's a big fan of Jump romances in particular. Like, I mean, I made such a big deal when Nisekoi was about to break the record for like longest romance in Jump. Like, I pay too much attention to this stuff. And like Yamamoto Ryuhei is a really accomplished creator for someone who's had no successes. Like the quality of both this and E-Robot is like, I can't even think how to put it. They're too rude to safely get votes, but they're too tame to appeal to the people who want to read an ecchi series.
Yeah.
So like they occupy this weird space, which is a shame because they're almost always good. Like Love Rush in particular, I mean, you were saying it yourself, Colton, like it's pretty much devoid of cliche. Like it dodges so many of those awful traps that every romance comic has to have, especially if it's a shonen one. And it does it with aplomb. The characters are well developed, or even just have like simple goofy gags. Like there's a lot of, they're not really what I call Toriyama gags, but they're in that same realm of stupid old man jokes. Like the fact that one of the main love interests, the Cupid, is called Kokoro Roko Rokoko. Like it's one of those names that's deliberately hard to say. Like you hear that sort of thing in like a Rakugo story of just like something that you stumble your mouth over. It's a good feeling. It's good comedy.
Yeah, it's a good tongue twister.
Exactly. And, like, it does such a great job. I've said previously on both social media and on the unreleased episode of this that I think there's a really interesting read of Shizuku and her inability to deal with her own feelings and, indeed, the idea of a date, how you're supposed to behave around a person. Like, even eye contact is something she's not very good at, which reads as heavily coded. Like, a lot of people have said, oh, it's just one of those sort of more empty female characters in the series, but for a romance comic in particular, it reads heavily coded as someone who's like significantly on the autism spectrum, which would be unprecedented for a Shonen Jump manga, but is also just kind of, when you can read a series that's only 13 chapters long and you can have deep reads into characters like that easily, it surprises me, especially for a series that decided to go and call like the thing that makes Reishi handsome the uber male gene, which, like, until I got to the end of chapter 1, I thought this was going to be garbage. It's called the uber male gene. That's set to appeal to a certain group of people, and those people are Nazis.
Yeah.
So like, but the fact that Love Rush worked out, and it's like one of my favorite things that came out last year, and like I've been having to keep my ear to the ground waiting for volume 2 to be available again on Yes Asia, because like I need to just buy both volumes of the series. Like, they've got such a nice cover treatment. They're good series. They're far better than they deserve to be as a series that got cancelled 13 chapters in. And I think it's part of why I like a lot of these cancelled comics, especially things like Love Rush, where they get cancelled because they're low stakes, because they're kind of weirdly relaxed. They're not fighting for readers. They're just trying to tell a story. And it almost never works out for them. But at least with Love Rush, it feels like if you don't look at like the color page at the start of it or whatever that shows like, here's all the characters we could have had, like you would think it was just supposed to be a couple of volumes long. Is it one of the things? I think it's like the second chapter.
Yeah, looking at that, looking at the front cover of Jump from when that premiered in Jump, I did notice, only one or two of those girls actually actually had any real role in the series at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, I mean, I throw this out here a lot. I always use like Zombie Pad as an example of this, but like you should never have your opening cover or color page show all the characters you're going to do one day, because that's almost always tempting fate to cancel you. Like,
yeah,
what a mess. But Love Rush, it's really good. Like, one of those things that people just can't read again in English now, though.
Yeah, unless you have the back issues.
Yeah, because I'm sure Viz isn't going to bother putting this out in volume form.
No, like there'd be no benefit for that. I think like I knew a lot of people were talking about it as it was coming out, but I don't think those people would care enough to buy the volumes.
Yeah, I think it did win people over, like overall, because there were a lot of people who are like distrustful of it because it was from the E-Robot creator, and E-Robot had a very poor reception. But
which amazes me because I thought that series was amazing.
I mean,
but it was Dr. Slump for a new generation. They didn't know what they had.
E-Robot, I will say, I don't think... I mean, it was dumb, but it was the kind of dumb I really enjoyed, so I didn't really have that much of a problem with it.
It was knowingly dumb. Like, it wasn't just doing awful jokes about breast missiles. It was doing awful jokes about breast missiles, because isn't that just, like, the most stupid and on-the-nose thing this robot girl could have? Like...
Yeah, but... Yeah, it's very interesting that Love Rush gained such a cult following. Like, the Weekly Manga Recap guys were like, got complaints that the series wasn't included in their, like, best manga of the year poll that they had put up. And like, cause, there were a lot of people who actually really enjoyed that manga. So, it's pretty interesting.
I'm willing to admit that Love Rush does have a lot of, did have a lot of potential and had a lot of really great, interesting aspects about it that I think are a bit hard to ignore. But yeah, like I said, it's just my problem with these comics and how early on they're canceled. For me personally, they don't get a lot of chance to leave a lot of impact on me. I feel like the one canceled Jump comic I've ever read that's really left some kind of impact on me would probably, or I guess left the most impact on me would probably be something like Omagadoki Zoo, which, to be fair, ran way longer than any, like, other canceled Jump comic I've ever read at, like, 38 chapters, I believe. It ran for almost a year, which is pretty good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that might not be a fair example, but, yeah, so... generally speaking, they don't leave a lot of impact on me in general because they're so short and because they present a lot of interesting ideas, but they don't get nearly enough time to really explore them, which I understand the reason why that is because they're canceled so early on. But that's just a problem with me in general, personally. But now I'm willing to give Love Rush its due. I was totally expecting to hate it. Based on that first chapter, because I didn't really care for that first chapter too much, because I think it is pretty misleading. But I am willing to admit, yeah, it has its good points, and it does present some interesting ideas. But at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to think about it ever again.
That's fair, though. I disagree about the first chapter because rereading it, I thought it was actually really great, and it does kind of set up everything it was going for too.
With the knowledge of where it's going to go, on rereading the first chapter, I have a lot more affection for it. But, I can only imagine that a lot of the people actually reading Weekly Shonen Jump in Japan probably had the same sort of, dislike of those first, 10 or so pages that really made it a hard sell. Like, that first chapter needs to hit hard, and Love Rushes didn't.
Yeah, I think the Uber male gene thing, just as a concept, was enough to turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem with it, was that do you really need a reason for all these girls to fall in love with the main character? Like, I thought that was kind of I don't know.
Well, I think it works out as a funny reason, and it works out in the sense that he has to ward off all these like crazy supernatural chicks ultimately that get attracted to him. So
I will say it did lead to kind of an interesting idea for a character arc at the very end, where because of this, I don't know what you would call it, disease, disorder, this thing that he's born with, that he has a lot of trouble opening up to people, and really doesn't know how meaningful the feeling of love really is, like how much love really means to people. You know, one of those things where it's like, how much does it mean when somebody tells you that, you know, that they love you? And I thought that was actually pretty poignant near the end. I thought that was again another really interesting idea for, I think, what could have been a really good character arc.
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
But I think overall it was okay.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have regrets.
No, I don't have regrets. Like, it was a nice little thing to kind of like, because admittedly I did read most of it at work. You know, when I didn't have as many customers coming in and ordering food, you know, I would just kind of sit down in the lobby and read it to kind of pass the time. It was, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all. It was a good time waster, at least. You know, like Maxie said, I don't regret reading it, but you know.
Well, I definitely am rather sad that the series was canceled, because I think it could have been really great had it been given more time. But just as it stands, like just as a short work, I just think it ends up being really strong too, and I really enjoy it. And I want to see more rom-coms in the vein of Love Rush going forward. So I'm hoping that the new Jumpstart that's debuting this round, that is going to be a romantic comedy, kind of follows in that vein. And it kind of, you know, I kind of want a replacement for Nisekoi that really takes what was great about that series and really focuses on it all the way through, instead of getting bogged down in like filler. So I'm kind of hoping to see that kind of thing pop up. And Love Rush could have been that, but it just didn't get the chance to.
Yeah.